will be available online. So before we get started, we're glad to have Councilwoman Sandoval with us this evening. Thank you so much for joining us, Councilwoman.
Kimberly, thank you very much for the introduction. I'm Councilwoman Ana Sandoval. I represent District 7, which of course includes the area with the Seeling channel in it. And I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight for this meeting about the Seeling channel public art project. I want you to know that through this project, we and you are creating a new landmark in our community. You may know that the Seeling channel is a huge endeavor. The first 3 phases alone are costing upwards of $60 million and are taking about a decade to complete. So I think we deserve to commemorate that with some beautiful art that you can enjoy. I want to thank all those who live near the construction for how patient they've been throughout this whole time, but they know as well as I do that it will be absolutely worth it to protect our community and to keep those homes out of the floodplain. Tonight is one of your opportunities to shape this new public artwork. It will express the history and the culture of the area surrounding the Seeling channel. I encourage you to give your input to our Department of Arts and Culture on this project and to leave your mark on our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Sandoval, and thanks for all your support throughout this project. We really appreciate it. So tonight, if we could, Stephanie, if you could start the slide for us. There we go. And next slide. So throughout tonight's presentation, you can send questions directly to us by clicking on the chat icon at the bottom of your screen. Please make sure that when you send a chat, you choose everyone from the drop-down menu. We'll do our best to respond to your questions before the end of this meeting. If we don't address your questions, we can follow up afterwards, or please feel free to email me anytime. The chat in this meeting is part of public record and open to everyone. We ask that you use the SA Speak Up guiding principles for conversation that is meaningful, transparent, respectful, and inclusive, and that you refrain from using profanity. Next slide. During this presentation, we're going to look at the public art process, a project overview, talk about the location, and show you the updated design. We'll talk about the timeline and next steps, as well as get your feedback on this updated design. Next slide. So this is a second conversation that we're having about the design. So some of this may be familiar to you already, so just please bear with us if you've already heard this. So if you're not familiar with public art is art in a public space that has been through a public engagement process to determine 3 things: where the art will be placed, who the artist will be, and what will the inspiration and themes be for the art. It's approved by the San Antonio Arts Commission. It's managed by a public art project manager like myself, and it's usually paid for with public funds. These funds come from the 1% allocated from public works funds, and they are used to implement public art projects according to our public art plan. Next slide. Every public art project our department manages goes through an extensive process where we check in with the community and different stakeholders, as well as our San Antonio Arts Commission and Public Art Committee. So for this project in particular, we're about halfway through here. As you can see, we've done community engagement. The artist has been selected. They've developed a concept, and now after we showed that to the community, they have developed a final design. Next slide. So I imagine all of you are familiar with the Seeling Channel Improvement Plan, as you've been living through the construction and planning for a while now. But if not, as Councilwoman Sandoval mentioned, this is a multi-phase plan is a response to catastrophic flooding in the area. And when complete, we'll move over 100 homes from the 100-year flood plan. Next slide. So following the 2017 bond, our department conducted a citywide community engagement through our Que Pasa program. which showed a high interest in including public art in the Woodlawn Park area, as well as Seeling Channel specifically. The 2017 bond includes phase 3 of this Seeling Channel project, which expands the channel from Morning Glory through St. Cloud and includes curbs, sidewalks, and driveway approaches as needed. Next slide. Some of you may have some questions about the public works portion of the channel project, which includes the channel expansion and the street and sidewalk work. I can't answer those questions for you. So here on the screen, please contact Sean Beauvais he's a capital project officer with Public Works. He will be happy to answer any of the larger public works questions for you. Next slide. So some of you may have attended our first community engagement where we were able to meet in 2019 in person. And it was at this meeting at Jefferson High School that we talked about some of the themes and important aspects of the project. Also with this, we held an Essay Speak Up online survey where we had 72 people respond and tell us what they would like. Next slide. So the community engagement from that meeting and from those 72 surveys told us that the artwork should include references to Seeling Channel and nature, as well as the history and culture of the neighborhood. The project should employ some of the many artists who live and work in District 7. The project should incorporate poetry to help tell the story of the area and be located in one of the neighborhood green spaces. Excuse me. Next slide. So we had an artist selection panel made up of representatives from the Arts Commission as well as the community, and that panel selected Kim Bishop and Luis Valderez to be the lead artists for this project. Both Kim and Luis have a long history of community engagement, of being long-serving residents of District 7. So they are very excited to be part of this, and we're excited to have them. We also have partnered with our 2018-2020 Poet Laureate, Octavio Quintanilla. This is part of his Poet Laureate initiative, and you'll see exactly what he did in a little bit here. Next slide. So before we get started, I wanted to plant some of these questions in your mind as things to think about as I move forward with this presentation. At the end, we'll have a discussion portion where we really want to hear you guys, your opinion on it, how you like it, so we can move forward. So please feel free to comment anytime, but I will wait to address any questions until the end. So the questions that we'd like you to think about are, what parts of the design stood out most to you? How does the imagery, artwork, and poetry make you feel? How do you see yourself interacting with the artwork once it's built? And how do you feel this design fits in with the neighborhood? Next slide. So as a reminder of the location, when it came to choosing where this artwork would be located, the community engagement really directed us to look at the green spaces along the channel. And so working with the artists and our colleagues in the Parks and Recreation Department and Public Works, we narrowed a location in a small green pocket park at Magnolia, Mistletoe, and Emory, which is just north of the channel. The space is about 16,000 square feet and is not currently utilized. The other great thing about this location is that our schedule would be independent from Public Works, so we could really get started as soon as we're able to. We don't have to wait until the whole Seeling Channel project is complete. Next slide. So here's the concept that we presented to you guys virtually last fall in September. This is Kim Bishop and Luis Valdez designed this community gathering place, which was to celebrate poets and artists from District 7. The main feature was a shade structure, which uses sunlight to impart poetry from the structure onto the ground below. This concept also featured a seating area. The community really approved of the overall concept during the presentation, during the feedback time after that. We got a lot of great responses about the use of local artists and poets and about having a nice community space in the neighborhood. We did get some comments that there should be more permeable surfaces located in this design and incorporated. So that's something that the artist really took to heart, and you'll see reflected in the updated design. Next slide.
Hi everybody, I'm Kim Bishop.
And I'm Luis Valderas.
And we're Bishop and Valderas LLC. Thank you for coming back to another community meeting to talk about our design. We heard you at the last one, we heard your concerns. And so in our new design, our revamped design, we have added more green space and more trees.
We also paid attention to the concerns of the non-permeable surface and reduced the area of our design so that we could reduce the amount of non-permeable surface that was in the design.
We are primarily social engagement artists, and so one of our biggest concerns is collaboration, not only with other artists, but with the community.
So in keeping with this idea, what we did was we reached out to local artists to create designs based on some of the streets in the area, and we also reached out to the local poets to create poetry about the same thing.
So we're bringing poetry and we're bringing artwork to the community so that the community then can interact with both.
We wanted to create a place that could function almost like a Zen garden of sorts for contemplation, with this soft, gentle area for sitting that faced an area that could function as an amphitheater structure for poetry and performance.
So this is a place for the community to gather, to assemble, to perform, to have poetry readings. We want this place to be our community, almost our community outdoor theater.
We considered the plants and the trees in the area to be part of the same design as earth art as well. So what we've done is we've created a gentle rise in the surface area behind the bench to create a gentle cradling of sorts for anybody sitting there in the space.
The overhangs that create the space above this beautiful blue concrete take on the look of a pop art piece, with being ballpoint pens and waving paper.
This creates the location that functions as an amphitheater that pushes out the sound towards the people sitting on the contemplation bench.
And it projects pieces from the poems onto the ground, so there becomes an interactive situation between the audience and the community.
We're really excited about presenting this piece and this idea to the community as well, and we sure look forward to it getting approved and getting your seal of approval so we can move forward and turn this vision into reality.
Thank you so much.
Thank
And
you.
the artists, they were very excited about this concept and this final design, and wanted to know how much they appreciated your input the last time. So you can see here, this is the updated design for an artwork called Poet's Point. It's a community space that utilizes the triangular shaped parcel with the movement of the sun. The granite paths will lead pedestrians to a sky blue stained concrete pad in the shape of an eclipse. The north side of the shaped pad will be lined with a gently curved public ledge, seating ledge, with a back wall that staggers in height. Reflected on the opposite side of the ledge, across the watery blue concrete, will be 3 12-foot high cantilevered metal overhangs that mirror the curve of the ledge. The curve of these structures echo the movement of the sun at this latitude and will be an inviting area for poetry readings, for public gathering, or just for hanging out. The floating powder-coated white overhangs will softly wave and bow to emulate a reference to a lightly blowing piece of paper. Cut from the floating white metal shades will be excerpts from the poems featured in the art wall. Each day, the text from this poem will shine and move onto the blue concrete below, making an interactive experience for the readers. Visitors will be able to read the text and then locate and match the inspirational lines to the text in the art wall. The posts holding up the paper-like cantilevered roofs will be aluminum gray and shaped to represent a ballpoint pen, thus creating the metaphorical reference to the title, Poet's Point. Next slide. So you can see here a kind of bird's eye view of this space with some measurements there. You can see the structure and artwork takes up a lot less area than the concept had previously. And that's in response to having more permeable surfaces. You can see the existing lights right now is that yellow circle at your bottom right of the screen. So this is a nice place where people can come and hang out, but it also isn't this huge, massive eyesore. Next slide. So within these staggered areas, 7 tile murals will be inlaid into the cool gray concrete, into the concrete form, while the bottom ring of the ledge will be covered with creek-like natural stones. These 2-foot by 5-foot fine art ceramic murals produced by local community artists emphasize the themes of the neighborhood that I'll go into in a moment. And each of the artworks will be flanked by the poem, which has the same theme written by local poets. So behind that ledge, the earth will be raised into a gentle slope where 3 large trees will be planted to create some shade for the seating area, and also a beautiful meadow-like view for the neighbors directly behind it. And here you can see, next slide, a good portion too of that, how the cantilever overhang looks like a piece of paper, and the columns look like ballpoint pens. Next slide. So as I mentioned, there are 7 categories that Kim and Louise chose, and these were inspired by the water of Seeling Channel, the sun that is active in using the shadowing effect, and then of course 5 street names that are directly around this area: Magnolia, Mistletoe, Morning Glory, Mulberry, and Huizache. So you can see here Octavio Quintanilla, as his Poet Laureate initiative, invited his fellow Poets Laureate, so Andrea Vocab-Sanderson, Jenny Brown, and Carmen Tafoya, as well as poets from District 7. We have Joshua Robbins, Natalia Trevino, and Eddie Vega. Kim and Louise also selected 7 local artists who live in District 7 and close to Sealing Channel. Those artists are Cody Vance, Brandy Gonzalez, Deborah Vasquez, Norma Jean Moore, Margaret Craig, Jose Bailly, and David Zamora Casas. So we have a huge talent of artists and poets included in this. Next slide. So you can see here some of the poetry samples. These aren't their full poems. Their poems are so amazing, and I can't wait to share them with you guys. But we just selected, Kim and Louise selected these small selections from the poems, and this in bold is what will appear on the cantilevers. So they'll have that shadowing effect where these poem lines will be reflected down into the concrete below. Next slide. And of course, here are some of the artworks that will be featured on this tile wall. So it'll just be printed on tile. I don't know if any of you have been down to San Pedro Creek, but they have some beautiful murals on tile. It's going to be that same kind of effect. So you'll be able to, again, see these great artworks next to the poem on this seating area. Next slide. And here are our other 4. Next slide. So to give you an idea of schedule, we're having this design update tonight to get your feedback. Hopefully you guys enjoy this piece as much as we do and much as the artists do. And we will take in your feedback and then present this final design to the Public Art Committee and the San Antonio Arts Commission in March for approval. After we get that approval, that's when we can start finishing up the construction documents and engineering and move into fabrication and installation. And hopefully by this time next year, we'll be able to have a dedication ceremony and unveil this in the neighborhood. Next slide. So that's the updated design for the public artwork at Seeling Channel. So I showed you these questions previously, but now I'd love to hear your responses to them, or if you have any other comments or questions. These questions are: what parts of the design stood out most to you? How does the imagery, artwork, and poetry make you feel? How do you see yourself interacting with the artwork once it's built? And how do you feel this design fits in with the neighborhood? So we're going to take a 2-minute pause here while we let you guys gather your thoughts and put in your chat. Remember to select everyone from the drop-down menu so we can see your chat. Okay, we have a question that says, are those Huisache and Magnolia trees planted on the sides to match the themes in the poems? So we would like to have some live oak trees, are the 3 big trees at the back, as well as ratama trees and Mexican sycamore. We are working with our colleagues at the Parks Department who will be giving us some of these trees. So we will ultimately go with what they have, but this is our request for now. But that's a good suggestion. Okay, next question. The revised scale is perfectly proportioned to the site and intimate use of the space. Is there lighting? And how about electricity so that guests, poets, and others can hook up a mic so they can present in this beautiful performance space? So there is just the one existing light that's on the street. And in our projects, we try to spend, based on our budget, spend as much money as we can on the artwork. So while we would, there's not electricity currently there now, but it is something that I am talking with our colleagues at Public Works to see if there's any kind of possibility. But right now, it's not within our budget to add any extra light. But I do like the idea of that for poetry readings and things. I think that would be nice to have. Okay. This next comment is, I like the concept, but wondering how a youth component can be added to the overall design. Maybe like an interactive chalkboard or something in that nature to have the kids engaged and write their own poetry. I live near the area and know it's important to have intergenerational spaces. So that's a great point, and it is something that Kim and Louise, the artists, have thought about. So the poetry, it's hard to tell in this view, but it's going to be engraved in that seat wall, so kids can come and make rubbings of each of the poems to take home with them. And of course, the middle cantilever has a big question engraving of what if, and that's meant to encourage kids and even adults to ask, like, what if I just took the step and had the courage to move forward? So this is something where, again, we want all generations to come and enjoy, but that's something that we can certainly pass on to the artists to look again at. Okay. Let's see here. Okay, question. Can we not incorporate Magnolia and Musace trees to be planted on the sides to match the poem themes and the street names? Yeah, so as I mentioned, we're working with our parks department, and depending on what trees they have and what they're able to do, I think having some of these native trees on the spot would be just the great tie-in. Okay, another one says, thank you. The community members who met on this project were very interested in providing accessible performance space here. Okay. Okay, let's see. We have a question. As one of the poets involved in the creation of the master poem, we had intended the poems to stand together. The way it's printed visually, it looks like a series of excerpts. The names are interfering with it being read as a complete poem. So yes, so in, if you, Stephanie, I don't know if you can go back to the bird's eye view for me. So, yeah. And one more. So the poems, the names of the poets aren't actually going to be on this overhead. I just put that to credit and to show the community, you guys, that who created what poem and what their writing was like. So it's imagined to have just the excerpts of the poems, and these excerpts kind of show the theme of each poem so that somebody can read that on the ground and then say, well, I think that poem is about the Magnolia, and can go look at the artwork and see if they're correct. So the excerpts are going to be in different kind of fonts and not lined up. So they're not going to read, they're not going to look like a complete poem. And this is a little bit of a development from what we had last time, but Kim and Louise chose the excerpt lines that they thought best represented each of the subjects and could tie in easily to the artwork. Okay. Okay, so we had somebody, our colleague at Parks, is saying that they're very excited about the project, and it'll be the very first poetry garden in San Antonio, and they're happy to help out and help us out with some of our questions, our requests. Okay, we have a comment saying Magnolia trees have been doing very poorly in our area. They're not the greatest trees to sit under. So we'll look at all that with our Parks Department, who will manage the space once it's complete, and make sure that anything we plant here is going to be taken care of and is suitable for the area. Okay, question. Could there be signage with the QR code to view the entire poems? Yes. So in addition to having the entire poems engraved on that back of the seating bench next to the artwork that's inspired by the same theme, we are also going to have a website with the artwork and the full poems to kind of tell the story of this. And I think a QR code to have all of that information is a great idea. So we'll have signage like we do with all of our public art projects to kind of to help people dive deeper if they want to. And then we could go back to the question slide. That's all the questions I'm seeing for now. I'll give it another minute here. And again, this is being recorded, and we will post it and send it out to everybody who registered for the event. So if you want to take a look at it again, if you want to share it with your colleagues and friends, then please do. And you can send in any feedback to me, and I'll show you my contact information in just a moment here. Okay, so that's all. It seems like we're having a lull in the questions. Okay, will the full poem from each individual poet be displayed side by side with the artwork designed for it? Yes. So in a bigger picture, you'll be able to see there is the poem engraved into the back right next to the artwork. So people, the idea that Kim and Louise had where people would be able to see the shadowing effect from the cantilevers, go find the artwork and the poem in full and enjoy them. Okay, next slide, please. That looks like it's all the questions we have now. And so here is my contact information. My phone number is 210-207-5951. My email address is kimberly.meireles@sanantonio.gov. You can also go to our website, sanantonio.gov/arts, and my contact info is there. We will have the video posted by February 16th. And if you could please give me any comments by February 25th. That way we can look at those. Okay, we have some more comments here. Let's see here. It says, I think teachers from elementary, middle, and high school will have a fun field trip here. That's our hope. The website can include videos of the poets reading their own works. I'd also like to see bios of each the visual and literary artists. That's a great idea. I think, I know at least for me, when I picture the dedication ceremony, hopefully we'll be able to have in-person events. I think it's going to be great to have all the poets and the artists reading and showing off their artwork there. But having it recorded and put on the website, I think is a great idea. Okay, so we had a question about some more of the planting, if there's any xeriscape as well. So if you'll go back to some of the slides there, to where, let's go to the bird's eye, if you don't mind. So the trees will be, as I mentioned, parks we are working closely with, as they'll be managing this area once it's complete and making sure that it looks nice and the plants are staying alive. We have the trees that they'll take care of, and all of the smaller bushes and these smaller plants are all drought resistant, kind of xeriscape plants that won't need any kind of irrigation. And the rest right now is grass. That's how it appears now. Actually, well, that's how it appears most of the time. I think there's some trucks and gravel there right now. But we'll work with our parks colleagues to make sure that the planting list is able to withstand having no irrigation in the Texas sun and also look good. Okay. Any other comments or questions? Okay, question, where will people park? So there is parking in the, well, there's parking along the streets in the neighborhood. Mistletoe is pretty thin because it's right next to the channel, but there's plenty, like this, if you go one slide more, Stephanie, this area is pretty large. So we have a lot of parking directly around that area. Okay. And if we could go forward, and I just want to show you guys my contact information once more. Again, we'll have this video posted, and then I'll send it out to everybody who registered tonight by February 16th. And just turn in any comments or questions to me by the 25th. But it looks like overall there's a lot of positive support for this final design, and some great suggestions for adding some depth and really celebrating the poets and the artists, which is great. So that's it for tonight. Thank you so much for joining us and being a part of this public art process. We really do appreciate it. We could not do any of this without you guys and your opinion and your thoughts. So thank you for joining us, and I hope everybody stays healthy and stays warm and dry in the next few days. And then, yeah, so thanks again, and everybody have a good night.